Order.
The ayes to the right, 242. The noes to the left, 391.
The ayes to the right, 242. The noes to the left, 391. So the noes have it. The noes have it. Unlock. Order. Point of order. The Prime Minister.
On a point of order, Mr. Speaker, I profoundly regret the decision that this House has taken tonight. I continue to believe that by far the best outcome is that the United Kingdom leaves the European Union in an orderly fashion with a deal.
This was a sad, pathetic sight. Her voice breaking. Looks like she's been talking for a while. Her voice is cracking. And what you just watched was Theresa May's deal that she got with the EU. Because if you remember, Theresa May got a deal first with the EU that she brought back to Parliament. And it was voted down in historic, and I use the term literally, measure. It's like there's a scene, I don't know if it was from Star Trek. It's this, have you ever been punched in the face by a man in anger? That's what this was like. It was like being punched in the face by a man that's angry with you and that hates you. And you've killed his kid and he wants to take it all out of you in one punch. Right here. That's what this is. She's British, so she takes it well. And she says it's regrettable or unfortunate, whatever word she used. That word is infinitely unused in that moment. Meaning, that doesn't describe what just took place. Whatever she says can never get across in real terms what just took place. Motherfucker. In the bathroom, maybe screamed at the height of your lungs, but not what she's saying here. You know, and she saw it coming. Everybody saw it coming. In fact, she withheld this vote in order for a month. Put this vote off for a month because of how bad this was going to be. There's a scene from Stargate, one of the best episodes actually. They stop or slow down time. They could slow it down by a magnificent magnitude. However, the beam that is going to hit them and completely obliterate them from this reality frame is still going to hit them. They can't move any faster. They can only slow down time. Meaning you're still stuck with the reality to which you have. That's this. She knew it was coming. She couldn't do anything about it. She just had to stand there and ultimately take it. Why am I showing you this? The ghosts of Christmas past. I'm showing you this because the second Conservative Prime Minister, Bojo, got his deal. And as Bojo got his deal, there was celebration all throughout the EU. They applauded him when he walked in. Patted him on the back and all that good stuff. It's politics, right? Got to sell the deal. If everybody's looking down in their soup, it might not necessarily be a good deal. If everybody's applauding the Prime Minister, at the very least, it looks like the EU got themselves a good deal. And there's a Prime Minister who sits there and says, yes, we got a good deal. Here's the catch. True, false. Bojo said, I, Bojo, would never, under any circumstances, I'd rather be dead in a ditch than get an extension. And then they pass a law that says if you don't get a deal, you got to get an extension. What is the incentives here for Bojo? Think about it. What are the incentives for Bojo? The incentives for Bojo are to get a deal. I got to get a deal. I got to get a deal. Every ounce, every bit, every minutia of political capital that is in my being needs for me to get a deal. Because I, Bojo, has said under no circumstances would I ask for an extension. And even when they ask Bojo directly, will you get an extension? Bojo never answers that question. He's never answered that question. Look back over the footage. I watch UK politics like a hawk. He has never answered that question. Now, when they took him to court over it, the government submitted documents saying, yes, the Prime Minister will ask for an extension if he can't get a deal. He's never said it. What are his incentives? His incentives are to get a deal. He got his deal. Are the incentives to get a deal so prevalent that he would get a deal even if it wasn't necessarily a great deal for the UK? Maybe. And seeing the pressure that has been put on all these MPs to go through his deal with a fine-tooth comb, because again, this is a breakup, a withdrawal between the UK and the EU. It's a big fucking deal, right? If Bojo has sold out the UK, well, people need to know that, especially since they also know, again, the incentives go for Bojo to get a deal. Well, Bojo got his deal, but now Bojo has to sell that deal to the UK. It's not looking good. They've lost the DUP that quick. And Bojo got a gift today, and that gift immediately was taken away. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is Soapbox After Dark. It's almost 12. Guys, if you dig this content, not almost 12, I'm sorry, 11:04. If you dig this content, you find yourself coming back often, like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon, all that good stuff. Let's talk about British politics, and I'll keep it quick because there's another video I want to do tonight. These two, this is Juncker, President of the European Commission. There's all these moving parts to the EU, and there are 27 states, and they have all these different roles. Juncker has been around for a while, though. I remember him when he was, I think it was EU Parliament, but whatever. President of the European Commission. This is Juncker with Bojo. Celebratory. Bojo got his deal, is what he wanted to do. He got his deal. Let's hear him.
The last 3 painful years have shown many that a good divorce,
I think, can be incredibly positive, both for the UK and for the EU. And I just remind you what I always say, that we are a quintessential European country, solid European friends, neighbours, and supporters. And we look forward to working with you in building that partnership in the weeks and months to come. Thank you all very much. Jean-Claude's the boss here.
Yeah, I have to say that I'm happy about the deal, but I'm sad about Brexit. Have a good time.
but we've been here before, and the question on all their minds.
And Juncker shuffles away. And then he dropped a bombshell. There will be no extensions. There will be no extensions. You accept Bojo's deal or no deal. Now, problem. First, for Bojo, yes. Bojo has been lobbying EU leaders to give no extensions. He's been saying, look, I need you to not give an extension. Don't give an extension. Don't give an extension. Now, Juncker, great. No extensions. I'm sick of this. It's been 3 years. 2 prime ministers. I'm done. No extensions. Bojo, at this point, can make the argument, you either accept my deal or you get no deal at all, which puts additional pressure. Meaning there may be some who say, well, look, I don't like this deal, so let's push and see what we get down the line with further negotiations. However, the moment that you said there are no new negotiations, and you say, oh God, I don't want to take a vote that is going to end up in a helter-skelter situation when there was a deal, imperfect, but there was a deal. It hurts, but okay, I'll sign it. It gives him more political weight to get what he wants if there's this notion of a no-deal Brexit. Problem. He's not backed up.
We know Prime Minister Johnson has expressed confidence about ratification, but can you tell us what would happen, in fact, if the House of Commons votes against this deal on Saturday? Will there be an extension? Or for that matter, if the European Parliament says they need more than 2 weeks to evaluate this very complicated?
And just to be clear, there's going to be a vote in the Commons on Saturday for Boris Johnson's deal. This is the second prime minister, again, that has brought a vote to the Commons. And the ghost of Christmas past haunts that vote. Meaning, the last thing Bojo wants to do is to bring that deal up and everything gets voted down. It won't be a historic measure because, for the most part, Bojo has more votes than Theresa May. Labour has called it a worse deal than Theresa May's deal, but Labour was going to say that. Labour needs Bojo to lose this vote. And this kind of gets to my point. If the issue is a no-deal Brexit, meaning it's off the table to get an extension, Bojo has a certain political force. The problem, he's not backed up by Tusk.
Agreement. Our intention is to work towards ratification. We support the deal, and this was a clear decision on 27 member states. And we are prepared for this ratification, logistically, politically, technically. Now the ball is in the court of the UK. I have no idea what will be the result of the debate in House of Commons on Saturday. It's not for me to comment on political developments in the UK. But if there is a request for an extension, I will consult member states to see how to react.
He doesn't back up Juncker, meaning Bojo's political capital, at least from the standpoint of threatening either my deal or no deal at all, has just evaporated. The member states will make their choice. Now, if Bojo was able to get the member states to not choose to extend, that's something else. There's nothing in the rule set that says he can't do that. He can do that. He has been doing that. And apparently, in Tusk's case, it did not work. Which means that in many other states, it might not have worked. But Bojo only needs one, and they're 27. They put a border down the Irish Sea. That is something Bojo said he would never do. And a border is a border is a border. And this, at the very least, jostles the Good Friday Agreement. They had to put a border somewhere. They thought a border down the Irish Sea will be less problematic. The DUP came out and ripped this deal to shreds almost immediately. They came out later, and Arlene Foster put out a statement. Her statement, in part, I'm only going to read part of it. These proposals are not, in our view, beneficial to the economic well-being of Northern Ireland and undermine the integrity of the Union. Our main route on trade of the East Wing West basis will be subject to the rules of the European Union Customs. Okay, let me just summarize. Ultimately, Northern Ireland will be essentially fundamentally within the context of the European Union, for all intents and purposes, with certain variations of things. Every 4 years, the Assembly will get a vote. This is a backstop by de facto. Now, I found this to be fucking fascinating, the politics of this. Every 4 years, they get a vote on whether or not they want to remain in that particular agreement space. Now, you could say, well, okay, they get a vote. That's not a backstop. Bojo got rid of the backstop. What Northern Ireland realized is that, well, wait a minute. The Assembly that they're giving power to is pro-Europe. And because that Assembly is pro-Europe, and it doesn't look like that Assembly is changing anytime soon, there will be no situation whereby Northern Ireland would ever be able to tilt back to the UK. And if that's true, if it's a situation where the way it's like the legalities of that stuff get structured more towards Europe and it stays that way, would at any point the question come up of, why are we even staying with the UK? Why? Essentially, you've put us into the regulatory order of Europe perpetually. And because you've done that, at some point, somebody may just raise the question of, why don't we just reunify with Ireland? They realize that pretty much off the jump, and it says, yeah, fuck that. We're not doing that. So that means the party that propped up the Conservative Party has just evaporated from supporting Bojo's deal. Now, catch. He still may get Labour support. Oh, God, I love politics. Because this issue goes beyond just the party structure. Because there are certain Labour members that may defect to support Bojo. So the numbers on this deal are unclear. Meaning we don't know what is going to happen on Saturday. Bojo may lose this vote or Bojo may win this vote. Isn't that fucking fascinating when you don't know what's going to happen? If Bojo wins, Bojo is going to say, I won an election. I've done what I said I was going to do. Give me my election. And Bojo will win that election in spades. And you would have a helter-skelter Britain. Because what Bojo wants, even though he's screaming about freedom and everything else, Labour allowed him the argument of freedom because Labour abandoned the referendum. If Labour did not abandon the referendum, then Bojo couldn't run out there and scream freedom. The catch is, what Bojo really wants is to be able to essentially cut regulation to the bone. He's a conservative. He's going to do what every conservative does. That's the only thing I expect of Bojo. By the same token, he did what he said he was going to do. I'm the guy that's going to get Brexit done. I'm going to pull you out of the EU. I'm the guy that's going to do it. There will be no more extensions. I am going to do it. And the moment that he wins on that, I don't know how he doesn't win elsewhere. It's so big. It's so historic. And the bravado, I got to be honest, I'm infatuated with the bravado a bit. And this is not pro Bojo because I know what Bojo is going to do when he gets in office. I mean, if he wins. But if Bojo gets this, Bojo wins outright. Think about what I'm saying here. Bojo comes out and says, I'm going to get Brexit done. And people are like, bullshit. Theresa May did it for 3 years. You're not going to do it. And he gets rid of members of his own party who doesn't toe his line. That's ballsy in and of itself. But he doesn't need those members because what Bojo needs is an election. And those members don't help him one way or the other. It's just a political thing. People were shocked that he did that. I'm like, he wants an election. Who doesn't give a shit about those members? And with a parliament that is absolutely crippled and with losing like 7 votes in a row, he ends up getting his Brexit deal. Opposition did everything in their power to stop him, and he gets it anyway. If he does that, I don't know how he loses in an election. I just don't. You depress Labour like nobody's business. And Labour was already pissed off because Labour was like, Jeremy Corbyn's plan is absurd. It doesn't make sense. But let's go to the other part. The other part's more interesting. Bojo loses. Meaning, maybe not a historic measure, but Bojo loses. He gets voted down. What happens? Jeremy Corbyn is going to stand up. He's going to be apoplectic. It's acting. He's doing his job. He needs to show that something horrendous is just taking place here. And he's going to say, I want a second referendum. Or at the very least, elements who want a second referendum are going to scream to the hilt. They're going to scream. Because they know the public is worn down. The public is tired of this. And every time a prime minister loses this vote, it makes it that much more likely. It makes it that much harder to get it done. It wears the public down. Bojo will have to beg for an extension. That's going to be funny to watch. That's going to be funny as all hell. Which means the Bojo may have to do something that he said he would never, under any circumstances, do. That will be funny as all hell to watch. Corbyn needs Bojo to lose. If Corbyn doesn't get Bojo to lose, Corbyn will lose his seat because they are not going to keep Corbyn in office if he loses a second election. But if Bojo loses, and Bojo has to call for an extension, that would also mean that Bojo lost his political capital. Because all of Bojo's political capital is, I'm going to be the guy who gets a deal. I'm going to get us out. We're not getting an extension. Here's the catch. One catch. One of those countries say, yeah, no more extensions. Bojo's promise was no more extensions. I'm going to be the guy to get us out. I'll be dead in a ditch, otherwise. Deal or no deal? Due diligence. He went to get a deal. Got his deal. Put it up to Parliament. Parliament votes it down. Due diligence. Now, if he, because one of those member states says no, technically, he didn't lie. Yes, he did have to beg for extension, but they don't have to give an extension. The EU is not forced by any measure to give the UK an extension. Not at all. And if any of those states that he's been talking to says, all right, Bojo, fair enough, I'm not going to give you your extension, he gets what he wants. God, this politics has gotten so fucking fascinating. And Bojo's deal, I mean, to be honest, you can't really listen to people of the various parties. Labour's argument is, look, this deal would essentially be a cut in all sorts of regulations, and Bojo would essentially be making deals with countries that will privatize industries that we have in this country. That's Labour's argument. The DUP's argument is, you've locked us in regulatory alignment with the European Union, and in doing so, you've essentially broken your promise to us, not to mention that border. Conservative Party's response is, well, it's better than May's. It takes us out. It's not everything we want. Some of it we hate. But fair enough. And in a weird way, the Conservatives have been willing to dump the DUP overboard to back their guy. But the catch is, it is unclear on whether Labour is going to be able to get all of his members to fall in line. This is fascinating politics. It's utterly fascinating. I don't know how people aren't enamored by this. We don't know what's going to happen on Saturday. Bojo may get his votes. He may get his votes. But we will see. If he doesn't, all hell will break loose. If Bojo does not get the votes that he needs for this bill, and this bill gets voted down, all hell will break loose. And what I mean by that is all sorts of opposition parties will be losing their minds. And not just losing their minds. If we want a referendum, we want to kill this thing altogether, they will be flipping out. And with a weary public, it is unclear on what that would be. Understand, take it from your standpoint. You've been doing something for 3 years. It has dominated everything in your life, meaning from this kind of just backdrop of all this stuff. And none of them even know what it means. Like, it's like, what does Brexit mean? Who the fuck knows? Some people say it means to leave. Okay, leave how? What's the relationship after you leave? And by the way, this deal is just the withdrawal. Everything else has to be worked out. And if Bojo loses and he's forced to do an extension and the EU accepts that extension, all of his political capital evaporated. Those polls that show Bojo in the lead will trickle down. That's my prognostication. I mean, he's bet everything on his ability to leave. I'm not going to get an extension. If he has to do that, then he's just essentially failed on the one thing that he's promised. Like, share, subscribe. Somebody says Bojo won't win. He might not. It's funny. I don't have any, I like Corbyn, so don't misunderstand me, but I feel distant from it. I don't have any biases on it. At least not in the sense of, thing. It's more so just the politics, if that makes sense. It's like if you're looking at something and you're untethered to the thing that you're looking at, and you're just looking at it purely as a game or as a game space, and you have people who are functioning with ends of trying to accomplish a particular objective, but they're accomplishing it at cross purposes. Looking at it purely just from the standpoint of how they're interacting, it's fucking fascinating, man. United Ireland, yeah. And by the way, Scotland is calling for a referendum. Prognostication, yeah. Prognosticator. What did I say? I said something wrong. Careful now, Jamal. The orange man told the United States he can make great deals as well. Oh, Jason, I don't have any strong belief that a conservative is going to make a great deal with, especially in the context of, I need to get a deal, I need to get a deal, I need to get a deal. All of his biases, or many of his biases, go towards getting a deal over the best interests of the UK, just because of the amount of pressure that's on him. So I don't have this notion that it's an awesome deal. By the same token, all of these other forces are going to be ripping this deal apart. And every negative part of that deal is going to be raised up as the most important thing on the planet. So that's the only way I see it. Hikintoro Udamo, Galloway was right again. Galloway tends to be right. Soviet Winter Spring, nice Ecuador shirt. Oh, you can see that from here? Good catch. The whole thing is pretty fascinating. It is. The consequences are irrelevant. The meaning is obscure. It's pure politics. Maybe I'm dumb, but I don't see this. It's pure politics. It's politics in its rawest form. People want something. Other people want something else. And they fight. And any weapon they have at their disposal that they use is go to the courts to stop that. We put a law to prevent that. The prime minister find ways to get around that law. Oh, God, it's awesome politics. It's awesome politics. It really is. It's fucking fascinating. Not to mention what happens with Ireland. Like Ireland, even Ireland is fascinating. Yeah. It's awesome. It's fascinating politics. And, you know, the wild part, not everybody in this is entirely ideological. Like, there are some people who take a stance, principle grounds, or are tortured by it. You know, in the U.S. politics, that, you know, that's stuff you pretty much know what the person is going to do. The conservative loses if the bill passes. SSS. Well, it depends on which conservatives, right? But and I don't buy that SSS. I mean, keep in mind what the conservatives want. The conservatives want to cut regulation. They hate the fact that the EU controls some of the... Because if you and I do a trade deal, let's say you and I do a trade deal, and in that trade deal, I'm going to say, look, my country has certain standards, and you need to meet these standards if you're going to send things to my country. So what are you going to do? What is going to happen to your country? Your country is to some degree going to tweak their standards. That's assuming that you're not in a submissive position. If you're in a submissive position, it may be different, in which case you may have to change your standards based on the country. But my point is, it reaches into your domestic politics. Their issue is the regulations of the European Union force us to keep our regulations in a particular way. We want to get rid of those regulations. We want to cut them to the bone. It's conservatives. That's what they want. If Bojo gets his deal and Bojo wins the next election, I don't know how you mean conservatives lose. I don't know how. It's just political sense. I don't know how. Adam Bell, what they're fighting for seems to have no substance whatsoever. Again, maybe I'm missing something, but it only has consequences for some business arrangements. The consequences for people is nothing. Well, no, that's not true. Like, I know it gets diffuse, right? It's like you're playing chess, and the king is castled on the king's side, and you're fighting on the queen's side. And it's like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything? But it matters. The ultimate objective is, yes, to get the king, but sometimes you have to smash the other military in order to do that. And in this case, the fight is, yes, it's diffuse, but it has real consequences in a sense of how much does the NHS get privatized? That's a consequence. That's a major fucking consequence. Meaning are parts of the NHS sold off to American corporations. That's a big fucking deal. In order to decide that, though, you got to win this. I hope you understand what I mean. There are real consequences, like whether people in Northern Ireland are closer to the EU or to Britain. That's a consequence. Whether you pay more for X or Y is a consequence. There are consequences. It's just they're somewhat diffuse. Yeah. It is fascinating. But yeah, there are consequences. But you got to have this fight to get to those consequences. And conservatives are conservatives are conservatives. They may be cuddlier than our conservatives, but they are still conservatives. And in the heart of these conservatives lies the American conservative. If they got the opportunity to do what they do in the United States, they would do just that. Your conservatives are our Democrats. And they will also cut regulation to the bone, even though you have a population that flips out if they go too far. Bojo, untethered to EU regulation, will do what I just said. He will cut regulation. If Corbyn loses the next election, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, share, subscribe. And by the way, I want Corbyn to win. What I would love is for Bojo to get this passed and lose the next election. Corbyn gets in. Because at that point, you would at the very least have this done. This shit will be behind you. Because honestly, any prime minister, doesn't matter who it is. Think of the best fucking prime minister that you think of. Make it a robotic prime minister. Add like Frankenstein parts to it. He will look bad doing this. There is no situation where you look good doing this. And there will always be fodder for you to get hit by just because any deal that you make is going to have negative aspects of the deal. There's no situation where the UK is going to leave and everything is going to be rosy within the deal. None. Even just on one front. Northern Ireland. Fucking Northern Ireland. Because ultimately, the Republic of Ireland belongs to the EU. Northern Ireland is supposedly part of the UK. A border, by definition, has to come up. But the UK, by law, cannot have a border between Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland Republic. By just the process, it creates contradiction. Meaning a border was going to be put somewhere. There was no situation where a border was not going to be put somewhere. And if you're the PM and you're trying to work that out, how do you work that out? That was an unresolvable problem for Theresa May. And it's going to be the death nail for Bojo, also potentially. If Bojo loses this vote, he better hope that one of those other 27 European states votes him down, meaning tells the EU or tells Bojo, no more extensions. If they don't, Bojo's political capital evaporates. Now, knowing that, what are the incentives for labor? Think hard. What are the incentives for labor? Every incentive in the world, every fiber of Jeremy Corbyn's being is to get up there and say, this deal sucks. This deal is worse than Theresa May. Bojo has sold out the UK. It writes itself. Because why wouldn't it? You may say that these people are actors. You may say these people are theater majors. You may say all this stuff. You may say these people are full of shit. You may say all of that. But here's the catch. If you were in their shoes, you would be doing the exact same thing. The exact same fucking thing. Because the rules of the game write itself. Jeremy Corbyn, based on his role as prime minister, as leader of the opposition, has a responsibility. Challenge the government. Take power. Those two are dicey, right? Because those two can come in conflict with one another. Challenge the government, but remain loyal to the government. Well, what does it mean to remain loyal to the government? I'm supposed to be loyal to the Queen. What I do in my capacity as challenging the government is not entirely to destroy the government, but is more so to make it better, to make sure it's staying earnest and honest and so forth. But we all, at the very least, are under the banner of, whatever myth that you want to have, that we can kind of organize ourselves around. Because all these things are just myths. None of it's real. But what if that means you think the prime minister is totally unfit for the job and is going to fuck over the UK? Then does that mean that you accept your job as leader of the opposition to in no way help the prime minister do what he's doing and to crash the government because you believe that it is in your best interest to be in charge and to run things in the UK. My point is, Corbyn and the other party members, for the most part, have said, we're going to crash this deal. And every incentive in the world is for them to crash this deal, regardless of what happens. Because they want to be in power. And if they want to be in power, the way to get there is for Bojo to lose. He needs to lose. There's no path for Corbyn to get in power unless Bojo loses. Meaning Bojo gets out there, his deal gets crushed, and the member states, all of them say, yes, we're giving an extension. And Corbyn, on the very day after, November 1st, after which the extension has been granted, will get up in the booth and say, I won an election. We won an election. Now, he's been screaming for an election for 3 fucking years. He wouldn't shut up about it. And when Bojo says, all right, let's have it, they said, nope, we're not having it. Why? Because Bojo's political capital in this very moment is at its height. And if you look at the polling, it shows it. Now, you might say the polling is dodgy, whatever. When you look at the polling, it shows it. All of his political capital at this moment, because at this point, he said, I'm going to be the guy to get us out. This Brexit shit is going to be over with. I'm the guy. Fine. Labour says, screw that. We're not having an election now. But I tell you this, on November 1st, when Bojo's political capital shrivels up, penis in the cold wind, Labour will scream for an election again. But Bojo needs to lose first. He needs to lose. It is fascinating politics. I don't understand how people don't find this fascinating. I was trying to explain this to my mom today. She had to get a procedure done. And I'm sitting there talking to her about it, and I'm explaining how UK Parliament is structured and, you know, how it's different from our system in the way that they go about their governance. And I was trying to get across the magnitude of what was happening all at once. Meaning, Bojo, I got a deal. Tusk, no more extensions. I'm sorry, Juncker, no more extensions. Tusk, yeah, there could be an extension. And then at that point, DUP, yeah, screw that. We don't like this deal. And then the explanation of why they don't like the deal. We don't want to be locked into the EU's orbit like this. We think this is going to sever us off. You've breached our deals, our red lines. All of this stuff is happening at once. And then vote Saturday. Vote on Saturday. Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens on Saturday. That is going to be fucking amazing. That is going to be amazing. Like, share, subscribe.